Welcome to The Quiet Scientist. Whether you're here for the first time or returning for another gentle journey, I'm so glad you've arrived. Right now, maybe you're lying under a soft blanket or curled on your side with one ear to the pillow, listening for quiet outside your window. The wind might be nudging the leaves. The sky, whether dark or moonlit, is stretching over you like a soft breath held just before sleep. Tonight, we're drifting into the hidden rhythms of the weather, the invisible ballet of wind and cloud, of warmth and pressure, of light and shadow. Not just what the weather is, but how it works and how it speaks in whispers all around you, each rustle of wind, each curtain of rain, each flicker of lightning. It's not chaos. It's the earth, alive and breathing. I hope this story helps you drift off into that cozy gray space between wakefulness and dreams. But if you stay awake a little longer, I must warn you, this topic might be a little too curious, too strangely beautiful, and if it is, well, you'll end up learning something wonderful, even in the dark. So, before we drift too far into tonight's story, a gentle like or subscribe would mean a lot to me, and it helps. The Quiet Scientist keep growing quietly. If you're listening from a faraway place, or just from your favorite corner of home, I'd love to know. What time is it where you are? And what's the weather like right now? Just a soft note before we begin. This isn't medical advice, just a slow walk through science, for wonder and for rest. Okay, now, take a slow breath in and let it go like a breeze through an open window. Let's begin. The weather as we know it today is not just something that happens around you. It's something that has grown and evolved along with the earth itself. Billions of years ago, when our planet was still molten and angry, there was no blue sky, no soft clouds, no rain. The atmosphere was thick with volcanic gases, choking, scorching, and still forming, but then, slowly, Earth cooled, water vapor began to condense, the planet's surface hardened, and oceans were born. And from the oceans, steam rose, clouds formed, rain fell. Over time, over eons, a rhythm began. Warmth from the sun met the cool breath of night. Air began to move. This movement, invisible, continuous, would become wind, and with it, the first weather. It was simple at first, just warm and cold, wet and dry. But as continents shifted and oceans deepened, the system grew more intricate, more playful. Mountains shaped clouds, deserts sent up hot drafts, forests breathed moisture into the air. Everything, every leaf, every stone, every stretch of sea became a quiet participant in the atmosphere's dance. And humans, we arrived much later. Long after clouds first cast their shadows on the earth, we stepped out of caves and huts and felt the sky on our skin, sometimes as a friend, sometimes as a warning. Rain meant the crops would grow. A chill in the air signaled the coming of winter. Thunder overhead might send us running for shelter or leave us staring in awe. Long before we had science, we had stories. The Greeks imagined gods throwing thunderbolts. The Norse said the wind was the breath of giants. In Japan, the wind god Fujin carried a great bag on his back, filled with air to spill across the land. And in many indigenous cultures, the weather was not just natural, it was alive. It had moods, it had intention, but beneath those stories, Beautiful, symbolic, and wise, the weather continued its steady, scientific rhythm, a dance of molecules and sunlight, a conversation between heat and gravity. Even the earliest humans could feel this, even if they didn't have words for it, that the sky was not empty, that it changed, and that those changes meant something. So when we ask, how does weather work? We're really asking about this ongoing dance, this living system that wraps the earth in motion and temperature and touch. Every moment of weather, from the softest drizzle to the fiercest hurricane, begins with something very small, a shift in temperature, a rising of air, a gathering of moisture, and from that, a ripple, and from the ripple, a pattern, and from the pattern, the sky you see outside your window tonight. It's not magic. And yet, it kind of is, because even now, with all our tools and satellites and science, we still find ourselves caught by it, watching clouds roll in as if they have purpose, feeling thunder in our chests, listening to the hush that comes before a snowstorm, or the sudden silence just after lightning strikes. Weather reminds us that we live in a system far larger than ourselves, that even while we sleep, the sky keeps shifting, that somewhere right now, it's raining. Somewhere else, the sun is setting through a golden haze, and in a few hours or minutes, that same weather might be on its way to you. So we begin here with the origin of weather, ancient and alive, with Earth's first breath still echoing in every breeze. And as you lie here, listening, your own breath is a kind of weather too, rising and falling, warming the space around you, responding quietly to the temperature, the comfort of your blanket, the stillness of the night. Let's follow that rhythm and see where it takes us. The room is quiet now. Even the shadows seem to pause as you lie still, listening. Somewhere in the distance, maybe you hear the faint hum of an air conditioner, or the way curtains shift ever so slightly near the window. These are the signs of something ancient, something always present, the invisible breath of the skies. Air. It surrounds you completely, even though you rarely think about it. You can't see it. You can't hold it in your hands, but it is always there, slipping through your fingers, brushing against your cheeks, filling your lungs in slow, measured waves. And that air, it's where weather begins. Beneath the softness of sky and cloud, air is made of tiny things, molecules of nitrogen, oxygen, and a little carbon dioxide, each one too small to see, yet always in motion. They don't sit still, not even for a moment. Instead, they move constantly, bouncing and swirling, bumping into each other, creating invisible currents. This motion, as simple as it seems, is the foundation of everything the weather will become. Imagine now that you could float beside a single molecule of air. It's tiny, weightless, and unpredictable. It zips along in a random path, never straight, always zigzagging, colliding gently with others. As the sun warms the earth during the day, those molecules begin to move faster, their jittering dance growing more energetic. Warm air, suddenly crowded with energy, starts to rise, while cooler, slower air sinks gently downward. This simple movement, up, down, across, might feel too quiet to matter, but over time, these ripples grow. They become wind and breezes and gusts that carry the seeds of trees, the scent of rain, and the drifting flight of birds. You're living in an ocean of air, though we call it the atmosphere. It stretches from the tips of trees all the way up into space, layered like the soft folds of a blanket. Near the ground, where you sleep, is the troposphere, the layer that holds almost all of the weather. It's where the air is thickest, where clouds are born, and where every breath you take has been breathed by millions before you. Sometimes, when the wind picks up, you might picture it as a force, something strong, something muscular. But wind isn't really a thing at all. It's a movement, a direction, air molecules shifting from one place to another, always chasing balance. Where the air is warm and light, it rises. Where it is cool and dense, it sinks. And in between, the wind is born. It's easy to forget, lying still like this, how restless the sky can be. But outside, beyond the safety of your room, air is on the move, over oceans, across deserts, through valleys and forests. It flows, sometimes softly, sometimes with fury, always seeking balance. And even though you can't see the air, you can feel it. The way your skin prickles when a breeze blows past, the way your hair shifts, the gentle rustle of tree leaves, the fluttering pages of a book left open near a window. These are all traces of invisible motion, a reminder that the world is always breathing around you. Ancient sailors once gave names to the winds. They knew them not as science, but as personality. The Mistral, the Sirocco, the Zephyr. Those winds shaped journeys, brought rains, told stories. Even now, we name hurricanes, as if to remind ourselves that the air has a voice. Yet for all its power, air is still soft. It doesn't crash. It glides. It caresses mountaintops, curls around rooftops, lifts the wings of birds and airplanes. It carries pollen, perfume, music, and memory. You could almost think of it as a messenger, always moving, always delivering something from one place to another. When you breathe in, you're inviting part of that great sky into your body. And when you breathe out, you're sending something back into it. A quiet exchange, unnoticed but essential, a reminder that you're not separate from the weather. You're part of its pattern, and this sky full of breath is never still. At sunrise, the ground begins to warm, and air rises in gentle waves. By afternoon, those currents may have gathered enough force to move clouds or sway tall grasses. By night, as the earth cools again, the air sinks and settles. Even in the deepest stillness of midnight, the molecules keep moving, slower now, quieter, but always in motion. You can think of the atmosphere as a living layer of motion, a veil that hugs the earth. It has no sharp edge, no exact border. Just like sleep, it fades into something else the higher you go, until eventually the air becomes so thin, so scattered, that it gives way to space. But here, close to the surface, where you sleep and dream, it wraps around you like a familiar comfort. It listens to your breath. It carries the sound of your voice. It dances gently with the leaves outside your window. Even in stillness, the air remembers movement. It is never entirely silent. If you've ever watched dust float in a sunbeam, you've seen the secret life of air, how it lifts, tumbles, and swirls. That dust is just a hint, the visible part of something invisible, of something alive, a reminder that even when everything seems calm, the weather is waiting, listening, preparing its next breath. So as you lie there, Think of the sky not as something far away, but as something close, closer than the blanket on your chest, closer than the rhythm of your breath, because it is your breath, and it's the breath of the world. The weather begins not in the clouds, or the storms, or the seasons, but right here in the invisible, dancing molecules of air, in the sky that breathes in and out, endlessly, quietly, just like you. And as this invisible breath of the sky surrounds you, always in motion, always alive, there's something else just as constant, just as vital, though you only see it when you look toward morning, light, the sun, from nearly 93 million miles away, whispers its warmth across space, not in shouts or shocks, but in a steady golden hush. It reaches the earth every morning without fail, slipping through your window blinds, painting soft rectangles on the floor, warming the fabric of your sheets. And that warmth, that quiet, glowing energy, is what sets the air in motion. The sun's heat is the first nudge. It doesn't push evenly, like a hand. Instead, it touches the earth in different ways, at different times, and in different places. Oceans soak it in slowly, deserts warm quickly, forests, dark and cool, drink it more quietly, mountains cast long shadows that never quite catch up to the light. And as each place responds to the sun differently, the balance of warmth and coolness becomes uneven. This imbalance is not a flaw. It's the beginning of the weather. The sun heats the land, and the land warms the air above it. Air molecules, energized and restless, rise up like a sigh released into the sky. Meanwhile, cooler air nearby, heavier and slower, slips in to take its place. This quiet exchanges up here, down there, set the airs in motion, forming the earliest fingers of breeze. And it happens everywhere, all the time, on mountain tops and meadows, over lakes and rooftops. The sun stirs the world without ever touching it directly. Its warmth moves the air, and the air moves the world. Sometimes you might feel the sun's warmth on your face and not think twice. It feels comforting, familiar. But what you're feeling isn't just warmth, it's momentum, a beginning, a signal that somewhere, something is changing. Somewhere, a breeze is being born. Imagine standing barefoot on sun-warmed sand. Beneath your toes, the grains shimmer with stored heat. Just above, the air wavers in rippling lines, dancing as it rises. That dancing air climbs into the sky, pushing upward gently but insistently, and where the air moves, the weather follows. The sun doesn't just heat, it awakens. As the day unfolds, different surfaces absorb sunlight differently. Cities, with their dark roofs and asphalt roads, become heat islands, stirring thermal currents into little spirals. Water, cool and patient, takes longer to warm, holding onto its chill until well into the afternoon. Forests breathe out moisture, while fields shimmer with dry warmth. All of this variation, every shadow, every rooftop, every pond, feeds the rhythm of the weather. The earth becomes a patchwork of temperatures, and the air moves to smooth those differences out. In trying to restore balance, it creates movement, and in movement, weather is born. You can almost picture the atmosphere as a giant blanket, constantly being tugged and fluffed by invisible hands. One part rises, so another sinks. One corner folds softly, another stretches. The sun, far above and far away, is like the dreamer behind it all, never touching, always shaping. And it's not only about heat, it's about timing. The sun doesn't shine on the whole earth at once. It moves in a slow, graceful sweep, tracing day across the globe like a warm fingertip gliding over a map. Where it's noon, the air is rising. Where it's dusk, the warmth is fading. And where the night still holds sway, the air rests in quiet stillness. This flowing, shifting light moves in cycles. And so the weather follows. A quiet morning might become a blustery afternoon. A cool breeze in the evening might be the echo of heat built up hours earlier, still working itself out. Even on cloudy days, when the sun seems hidden, it's still there, working in the background. Light seeps through clouds, filtered but insistent. It warms the earth gently, coaxing air into motion all the same. The clouds may veil it, but they cannot stop it. And so the sun becomes not just the giver of light, but the composer of motion. Its warmth doesn't just touch your skin, it stirs the skies. It sculpts the wind. It invites the oceans to sigh and the mountains to breathe. Without this warmth, the air would be still, lifeless. The sky would hold no storms, no breezes, no gentle drifting of leaves. But with it, everything flows. Even now, as you lie still, there is warmth in the room, from your body, from the walls, from the day that came before. That warmth is a whisper of the sun, still echoing softly through space and stone and skin. You can think of the sun's energy not as fire, but as a rhythm. It's not a burst, but a beat, a steady pulse that keeps the world turning and the air alive. And with every beat, the sky shifts, changes, and begins again. And so, just as breath fills the sky with invisible motion, sunlight gives that breath direction. It decides where the air rises, where it falls, where it wanders, and where it stays. Together, they become the first brushstrokes on the canvas of weather. Outside your window, perhaps the night is quiet now, but somewhere, just over the curve of the earth, morning is beginning. And as the first rays of sunlight touch the surface, somewhere air is rising, a breeze is forming, a cloud is stretching itself into being, and it all begins again. That first movement of warmed air, that slow upward drift, doesn't end with a breeze. It rises higher, cooler, quieter, until it meets something unexpected, its own transformation. Because as air lifts, it begins to let go, not of motion, but of moisture. And in that letting go, something begins to form. Clouds. You've seen them 1,000 times, maybe more, out your window during long car rides, pressed into summer skies while lying in the grass, hovering like ships at sea above city rooftops. They seem soft, light, almost weightless, like dreams or memories or passing thoughts. But clouds are made of water so fine, so perfectly suspended, it seems to vanish into air. Each cloud begins with moisture, invisible vapor that once drifted up from oceans, rivers, leaves, and skin. As air rises and cools, it can no longer hold all that vapor. So it releases it, drop by invisible drop, into tiny particles floating in the atmosphere. Dust, salt, smoke, any little thing to cling to, and around each speck, a droplet is born. These droplets gather silently. They do not rush. They simply wait, clustering together, drifting into groups, softening the skagstuck sea one by one. These droplets become clouds, not by explosion or fanfare, but through accumulation, through patience. It's easy to imagine clouds as simple things, but they are always shifting, always remaking themselves. They grow, stretch, dissolve. They curl at the edges like thoughts not quite finished. They gather density, then let it fall, and sometimes they hover in place, undecided. The type of cloud you see, its shape, its height, its color, tells a story of temperature, moisture, and movement. Wispy cirrus clouds, stretched like silk threads, form high above, where the air is thin and cold. Cumulus clouds, the fluffy storybook kind, puff up in warmer skies, lifted by rising air, and stratus clouds, flat, gray, wide as entire cities, settle low, like fog that hasn't yet come to the ground. But no matter the type, all clouds are messengers. They show you the state of the air without ever speaking a word. A rising tower of cloud in the distance might mean energy is building. A sudden clearing of sky might signal cooling or drying. They don't predict the weather. They are the weather waiting to unfold. There's a quiet paradox in clouds. They're made of water, yet they float. They seem light, yet they can weigh thousands of tons. They drift slowly, yet they are never still. Every moment, droplets are evaporating, condensing, forming, vanishing, a constant exchange between skasik and earth, breath and body. Think of the last time you watched clouds roll across the sky. Maybe you saw shapes in them, animals, faces, castles. Maybe they passed in a hurry, pushed by wind. Or maybe they barely moved, as if suspended in time. Wherever they were moving with purpose, following temperature, following pressure, following the rules of the air, and yet they never look rushed. That's the wonder of clouds. They obey science with perfect precision, and yet they appear to simply drift, like ideas passing through a quiet mind. They don't demand attention, but they always offer something if you look long enough. A sense of scale, a glimpse of motion, a soft reminder that even the sky wears layers. In some cultures, clouds were once thought to be spirits or ancestors watching from above. In others, they were the cloaks of gods, the hiding places of the wind. Today, we measure them with satellites and name them in Latin, but they remain just as mysterious. Because no matter how well we understand them, clouds still feel personal. They reflect mood. They change with the light. They hold rain or promise it, or hide the sun behind a veil. And perhaps, lying here now, you notice that clouds are never truly white. They shift in tone, silver, pearl, ash, slate, depending on the angle of the light and the depth of the water inside. In morning, they blush with the sun's first touch. By evening, they burn orange and pink, then fade to lavender and charcoal. Their colors are quiet, never loud, always a suggestion, never a demand. Sometimes, clouds form and vanish in the same hour. Other times, they stay for days, draping the world in quiet. A cloudy sky can feel heavy or safe, oppressive or calm, depending not on the clouds, but on what you bring to them. They are mirrors, in a way, and when you look up, you don't just see the sky. You see your mood reflected back, high above, beyond even the tallest clouds. The air is dry and thin, but down here, where clouds bloom and dissolve, the air is busy. It's filled with rising currents, cooling layers, and the patient turning of water into mist. You are walking through it every day, even when you don't notice, and even now, as you rest, the air above is changing. A new cloud is beginning, one droplet at a time. You may imagine them drifting over the horizon now, not in flocks, not in lines, but in quiet processions. Some curling, others layered, some bold, others barely there. A slow river in the skies, and within them, a quiet promise that moisture has gathered, that it waits, that someday soon, when the time is right, it will fall, but not yet. For now, the clouds remain above, thinking, moving, breathing, carried like thoughts across a sky full of breath. As those clouds float above, soft and slow and full of thought, they are never truly empty. Inside their misty forms, something stirs, something ancient, quiet, and heavy with time. Rain. But rain doesn't begin with a splash. It begins with a weight, high in the sky, where the clouds have gathered. Millions of tiny droplets hover, too small to fall, too light to leave. They bump into one another. They brush and cling. They swirl together in a kind of quiet communion. And with every meeting, every touch, a droplet grows just a little larger, not rushed, not forced, just a slow build of presence. These droplets are patient. They wait for the right moment, for the balance to tip, and then, eventually, gravity notices. When a droplet becomes too heavy to remain suspended, it begins its descent. It's not a fall, not really. It's more like a surrender, a yielding to the pull of the earth. It goes a gentle letting go. One droplet falls, then another, then thousands. And suddenly, the sky begins to weep. Rain is not a thing, but a happening, a story unfolding in small, persistent pieces. Each drop takes its own path downward, weaving through the air like a whispered note. Some fall in straight lines. Others drift sideways in the breeze. Some dance in spirals, spinning softly as they fall, and together they create a rhythm, not chaotic, not random, but soft, musical, almost tender. And when they reach the ground, when they finally arrive, they touch everything, the rooftops, the sidewalks, the shoulders of trees, the folded petals of flowers, the open palms of people caught in it. And in that touch, the world changes. Dust is washed away, leaves grow heavy and shine, soil drinks deeply, air cools, thickens, and fills with the scent of something ancient and clean. That scent, you know it, petrichor, the perfume of dry earth, meeting water. It's a scent that wakes memory, stirs stillness, and makes even the most hurried person pause. It's a reminder that something old is returning, that water, once lost to the sky, has come home. Rain doesn't always arrive the same way. Sometimes it tiptoes in, a mist that barely touches your skin. Other times it comes in wide sheets, blanketing the landscape with a hush that drowns out every other sound. And sometimes it crashes, thunderous, wild, and insistent. But even in its loudest moments, there's a rhythm to it, a steadiness, like a lullaby for the land. There's a strange comfort in listening to rain from indoors, under a roof, beneath warm covers, windows speckled with droplets that race each other to the sill. Each patter's a reminder of shelter, of safety, of the thin barrier between you and the sky. It's as if the world outside is breathing, and you're tucked gently inside its chest, and sometimes You step into the rain willingly, not to escape it, but to meet it. Shoes forgotten, hair soaked, arms outstretched. There's something childlike in that, something pure, as if and for just a moment you've remembered that you, too, are part of this cycle. You, too, are water. Because that's what rain really is, a reunion, water that once ran through rivers, flowed across plains, or lingered inside leaves, now risen, transformed, and returned. It's a cycle without end, a circle drawn not on paper, but on sky and soil and sea. And inside each droplet, if you could look closely enough, is a memory of where it's been, evaporated from ocean waves, lifted from the breath of forests, exhaled by animals, even whispered out through your own skin. The rain that falls on your rooftop tonight might have once been part of a Himalayan stream, a Florida storm, a tear on someone's cheek. It has traveled far to return here, to this exact moment. Rain connects things, places, times, some people. It dissolves boundaries and washes away borders. And even when it falls silently, it speaks, reminding you that the air, the sky, the ground beneath your feet are never separate. They are in constant conversation, always exchanging, always becoming one another. And after the rain, stillness, the kind that settles slowly, the kind you can almost hear. Puddles reflect the gray light of the sky. Tree branches sag under the added weight. The world smells fuller, richer. The colors seem deeper, greens more alive, browns more honest, blues more sincere. It's as if the earth has taken a deep breath and now finally releases it. And somewhere in that stillness, life responds. Worms rise to the surface, birds flutter from their hidden shelters, leaves shake droplets free in gentle shivers. The world, once dry and waiting, begins to move again, softer, cleaner, and somehow more awake. Even now, as you listen, rain may be gathering above. The clouds, full and slow, may be thickening. Perhaps they are almost ready, or perhaps not. Because rain never rushes. It waits. It listens. And only when the moment is just right does it fall. So close your eyes, if they're not already closed. Imagine those first few drops tapping lightly against the roof. Picture the cloud above, heavy but calm, releasing its gift without hurry. Let that rhythm carry you. Let it remind you of return, of softness, of the quiet weight that builds slowly over time and then lets go. Because sometimes sleep is like rain. You wait, you rise, you drift, you gather, and when you are heavy enough with thought, with breath, with being, you fall softly, slowly, beautifully. But sometimes rain does not fall alone. Sometimes the sky carries more than moisture. It holds tension. Invisible threads pull tight between cloud and earth, energy building with every rising current, every drifting droplet, every whisper of motion in the air. You might not see it coming at first. The air grows thick, the wind slows down, birds grow quiet. Then, somewhere in the distance, you hear it, a low, rumbling voice, thunder. It rolls in slowly, like a drumbeat from the edge of the world. Not sharp, not sudden, just a long, low sound that seems to come from everywhere at once. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just murmurs, a reminder that above the clouds, something is stirring, something old and electric. But before thunder comes the flash, lightning. It is fast, far faster than the blink of an eye. It streaks across the sky in crooked lines, too bright to stare at, too wild to trace. Sometimes it dances between clouds. Sometimes it leaps from cloud to earth or rises in reverse from the ground up, like a breath inhaled by the sky. And always, lightning is a release, a sudden decision after too much waiting. Because inside a thundercloud, towering, heavy, full of rising and falling air, there is a separation, a division of charge. The cloud becomes a battery, collecting positive energy near its top, negative energy near its bottom, until the imbalance becomes too great to hold. And then, like a sigh too big to contain, it lets go. The flash you see is not just light. It's a path being carved through the sky, a narrow, invisible channel suddenly made visible by heat. And that heat is immense. For a split second, the air around a lightning bolt becomes hotter than the surface of the sun. The sudden expansion of that air is what makes the sound you hear next. Thunder. It travels more slowly than light, which is why you always see the flash before you hear the sound. And the time between them, those few counting seconds, tells you how far the storm is. The longer the gap, the more distant the drums. The shorter, the closer it stands. There's something humbling about thunder. You don't control it. You don't predict its exact shape or sound. You just listen. You let it roll over rooftops, echo through valleys, rattle windows. You lie still and count the space between brightness and boom. You wonder, just for a moment, how something so far away can feel so near. Children often cover their ears. Animals seek hiding places. And yet, in its own strange way, thunder can feel safe, too. It announces itself. It gives a warning. Unlike the quiet dangers of the world, thunder says, I am here, and it waits, briefly, for you to listen. In some places, people name their storms. In others, they tell stories. That thunder is the voice of giants. That lightning is a god's whip, a dragon's breath, a celestial spark from the stars. Even now, with sensors and satellites, with maps and models, we still pause to feel something beyond numbers. In a thunderstorm, we still feel small, and that smallness is not fear, it's awe, because lightning connects opposites. It joins the sky to the ground, the clouds to the air, the invisible to the visible. It reminds you that tension can only build for so long before it needs release. That light, even in its wildest moments, comes from waiting. There's beauty in that. And rhythm. You might remember lying in bed as a child, listening to a storm pass through your neighborhood, the hush before the flash, the sudden crack of light, then the waiting, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then the thunder, low and soft, like the purr of something giant and gentle. Maybe you were scared. Maybe you felt safe, tucked under covers while the sky made its music. Even now, that sound can lull you. Thunder becomes part of the atmosphere's lullaby, not to frighten, but to remind you that even chaos has its cycles, even electricity has a pattern. And after the storm, the air smells different, charged, cleansed. It carries a kind of crispness, as if the atmosphere itself has been reset, as if the static in your thoughts has cleared, too. Breathing feels easier. The world feels newer. The sky, exhausted from its burst of energy, drapes itself in calm once again, sometimes in the heart of summer, A thunderstorm will arrive in the afternoon like a sigh. The clouds will tower high, like cities in the sky. The air will still, almost thick enough to hold. Then, crack, the first bolt lands, and the spell is broken. Rain rushes in. The tension leaves the air like a string being loosened, and you, watching from a safe place, are reminded of the sky's sudden generosity. Lightning is brief, but it leaves memory, not in scars, though sometimes, yes, it does that too, but in feeling, a moment of brightness that sears itself into the mind, a reminder that even air can be charged with possibility, that even silence can break beautifully. And now, as you lie still, the room quiet again, you might imagine a distant storm far away, too far to reach you, too soft to fear, just a slow rumble across hills, a flicker over a field. Somewhere rain is falling hard, somewhere windows are fogged with warmth, and somewhere a flash lights up the sky like a secret, followed by a drum roll from the clouds. You are not in the storm, but you are near enough to feel its rhythm. Thunder, pause, thunder again, as if the sky is breathing out a song it only sings at night. After the rumble fades into the distance, and the flash no longer pulses behind your eyelids, the sky exhales. The storm has passed, but the air is not still, not entirely. There's something moving, a silent, graceful current, like the quiet shifting of weight in a sleeping body. This is where the invisible shapes of weather come alive, not in clouds or rain, but in pressure, soft patterns of weight and space that press gently on the surface of the world. Highs and lows. You can't see them, you can't touch them, but you feel them in the way the wind moves, in the heaviness or lightness of the day, in the way your chest rises just a little more freely under some skies than others. Air, like water, has weight. It presses down on everything. On mountaintops, it presses less. In valleys, a little more. And when warm air rises, it leaves behind a pocket of lower pressure, a space the surrounding air rushes to fill. When cold air settles, it gathers more densely, creating an area of higher pressure, firmer, heavier, more stable. These pockets of high and low pressure are the true architects of weather. They are the unseen hands that move clouds across continents, that turn gentle breezes into roaring winds, and they never stop shifting. Imagine for a moment the Earth's surface as a vast dance floor. Above it, these pressure systems swirl and glide, pushing and pulling the air beneath them like a ballroom waltz. High pressure systems spin outward, clockwise in the northern hemisphere, sending calm, dry air down and out. Lows spin the other way, counterclockwise, drawing air in and up, like a dancer pulling in her partner for a spin. You may not notice it, but when the pressure changes, your body does. Some people feel it in their joints. Others feel a pressure behind the eyes, or a strange restlessness in the bones. Animals sense it too. Birds fly lower. Dogs grow uneasy. Even insects retreat. It's as though the entire living world listens to the breath of the sky. When high pressure settles in, the weather tends to still, the skies clear, the air dries. It feels like a held note, bright, open, unwavering. These are the blue sky days, the quiet mornings, the afternoons when the air seems polite and well-mannered. But lows are different. They stir, they churn, they invite change. Low pressure is rising air, and rising air can't hold all its moisture. It cools, it condenses, and clouds begin to form, then rain, then perhaps thunder. Low pressure systems are full of motion, full of possibility. They are the days when the sky feels expressive, moody, thoughtful, sometimes dramatic. The boundary between a high and a low is where the real dance begins. It's where the wind picks up, where the clouds grow tall, where the temperatures shift, like curtains being drawn and opened again. These boundaries, called fronts, are lines of contrast. Cold fronts push under warm air, lifting it like a blanket. Warm fronts glide over cooler air, laying down a gentle fog or drizzle. Each one has a personality. Each one leaves its mark. And through all of this, the air keeps moving, not just here and there, but across oceans, across deserts, from pole to pole and back again. It travels in vast loops, shaped by the spin of the earth, by the seasons, by the heat of the sun, highs and lows, twirling across maps, carried by invisible currents that never rest. Sometimes, when you see a weather map, those familiar swirls of blue and red lines, the H's and L's dotted like code, you're seeing just a sliver of this great ballet, a snapshot of the atmosphere's choreography, and behind it, so much motion, so much grace. But you don't need a map to feel it. You only need to step outside, close your eyes, tilt your face toward the wind. Is it cool and dry, pressing gently against your skin? That's a high, watching from above. Or is the air moist, the wind eager, the clouds gathering with purpose? Then a low may be near, tugging at the sky's edges. Even indoors, you are part of it. The pressure outside presses against your windows, against your roof, against the walls that keep you warm, the air inside your lungs, the ease with which you breathe, all of it shaped by the quiet weight of the sky. And in this moment, as you lie still, those highs and lows continue their dance. Somewhere, a ridge of high pressure is settling over a coastline, bringing clear skies and morning light. Somewhere else, a low is deepening over a forest, drawing clouds into its orbit, inviting rain. The weather doesn't come from nowhere. It arrives from these patterns, always balancing, always moving toward equilibrium, but never quite reaching it, like sleep itself. It flows in waves. One motion leads to the next. One system passes, another forms. A breath in, a breath out. So when you wake tomorrow and you feel the air press gently against your skin, take a moment. Listen for the quiet music of pressure. You may not see it, you may not hear it, but it's there, circling above, guiding the air, shaping the sky. The earth is never truly still, and the sky, even in its calmest moments, is always dancing. As the highs and lows drift across the earth like quiet dancers, they do not move in straight lines. Instead, they spiral, always curving, always drawn into graceful arcs. And the reason, the quiet force behind the twist and turn of air, is the earth itself. Because the earth spins, not quickly, not urgently, but steadily, once every 24 hours, without pause, without hurry. You don't feel it, lying here, but it's happening. A slow rotation beneath your body, under your bed, beneath the floor and soil and stone, the whole world turning, and as it turns, everything on it, oceans, clouds, breezes, feels that motion, not as a shove, but as a nudge, a gentle deflection. This is the Coriolis effect, the subtle way the Earth's rotation changes the path of anything that moves across its surface. It doesn't push the air, it bends it. So when wind tries to flow from high pressure to low, as it always does, the Earth's spin curls that motion. In the northern hemisphere, the air curves to the right. In the southern, it leans left. What might have been a straight breath of wind becomes a spiral, a turning, a spin. This is why storms rotate, why cyclones swirl, why vast jet streams carve ribbons through the upper atmosphere, snaking across continents in waves of cold and warm. The Coriolis effect is not loud or dramatic. It's a quiet influence, like a hand on a shoulder gently guiding you a different way. You see it in the way ocean currents arc across the globe, mirroring the motions of the wind above them. You see it in weather maps, in the great sweeping arms of hurricanes that spiral over oceans like ink dropped in water. You see it in the curve of clouds stretching across satellite images, never straight, always spiraled, as if the sky itself were painting with a slow, deliberate hand. And it's not just storms that spin. The jet stream, that narrow band of high-altitude wind, races eastward around the planet, shaped by temperature contrasts and steered by the Earth's turn. It's not one stream, really, but a shifting ribbon, dipping, rising, meandering like a lazy river of air. It helps carry weather systems from one place to another, guiding them like leaves in a current. Sometimes, the jet stream loops dramatically, pulling cold air far south or lifting warm air far north. These loops can change everything, turning a quiet week into a snowy one, or drawing rain into places parched for months. And behind it all, quietly turning beneath your feet, is the earth. Steady and slow, there's something poetic about that. The idea that every breeze, every swirl of cloud, every storm that forms at sea owes its shape not just to temperature or pressure or moisture, but to motion, to the turning of the planet you're lying on right now. While you rest, the world spins gently beneath you, and that spin shapes the sky. You might picture it now, the earth, round and blue, spinning in the dark like a marble on silk. Around it, the air turns too, dragged along by friction, bent by Coriolis, shaped into ribbons and spirals. The clouds don't just drift, they dance with the planet. Even tornadoes, those fierce funnels that touch down with wild energy, form from the same tendency to spin. They begin with winds at different altitudes, moving in different directions, creating rotation in the air. Then, if conditions are just right, with rising heat, moisture, and instability, that horizontal spin tilts upward, and the vortex tightens, spins faster, reaches down. It is the most focused form of atmospheric rotation, like all the sky's swirling motion gathered into a single, trembling finger. But not all spinning air is violent. Much of it is quiet, invisible. You feel it when you stand at the edge of a beach and the wind curves around your body, lifted by the contrast between land and sea, or when you walk in the city and feel the breeze turn down narrow streets, shaped by buildings, steered by warmth. The Earth's spin is always present. Even when the air feels still, it is not. It moves in wide, looping patterns, part of the global circulation system that moves heat from the equator toward the poles. Hadley cells, Ferrel cells, polar cells, names given to massive rivers of air, stacked like quiet wheels in the sky. They rise and fall, turn and return, transferring warmth, carrying moisture, shaping climates, and beneath it all, the earth turns. You don't feel it, but your weather does. That spinning motion adds character to wind, direction to pressure, movement to air. It gives the weather texture, a kind of twist that keeps it from being predictable. And in a way, it's comforting to know that even the most complex systems in the sky are influenced by something so simple, so constant. The turning of home. Now, imagine the sky above you not as still, but as filled with quiet spirals, from the spinning eddies in a breeze to the great gyres that shape the oceans, from the twist of a storm to the slow arc of the jet stream. Every swirl begins with motion, every pattern is curved. Even your thoughts, perhaps, are spinning a little now, slowing down, curling inward like a soft breeze around a corner. And just like the weather, they don't always travel in straight lines. They circle, they drift, they come back again. So rest here in the turning. Let the quiet spiral of air, of time, of breath surround you. The world is moving, and you are moving with it. As the earth spins, shaping the wind into spirals and curves, it performs another motion too, slower, larger, and just as graceful. It tilts, and it orbits. The earth is not upright as it turns. It leans slightly, like a dancer caught in mid-pirouette, tilted just so, about 23.5 degrees off-center. And this quiet tilt, along with the Earth's yearly journey around the sun, is what gives rise to something you know well. You feel it in the way the mornings brighten or linger, in the clothes you choose, in the mood of the world outside your window. The seasons, they arrive with a kind of rhythm, not sudden, not jarring, just a gradual turning of the dial, from warmth to cold, from light to dark and back again. The transition is soft, like pages turning in a book you've read many times before, each chapter familiar, but never quite the same. In summer, the sun leans closer, days grow long and golden, the warmth settles deep into the soil, air thickens with scent, of grass, of rain on pavement, of heat rising from stone. Everything expands, stretches, grows. Even the wind seems slower, heavier with warmth as it hums in tall trees and ripples through wheat fields, a lazy, sun-soaked lullaby. But the earth does not stop. It continues its slow arc, gliding through space, and the angle of light begins to shift. Shadows grow longer, mornings come later, the air sharpens slightly. One day, you notice a leaf turning, then another, and suddenly it is autumn. This season doesn't shout, it rustles. The wind carries a new tone, crisper, cooler, edged with change. Leaves let go, not out of haste, but as if they've finished their story and are ready to drift. The skies deepen in color. The air carries a kind of nostalgia, and you breathe it in without quite realizing that you're remembering not just last year's fall, but every one that came before. Then comes winter. The earth, now tilted away from the sun, tucks into itself. Days grow shorter, nights stretch wide, the air becomes still, sometimes brittle, sometimes gentle as breath on glass. Snow, when it comes, doesn't just fall, it hushes, It drapes the world in quiet. It softens edges, slows footsteps, and brings the sky closer to the ground. Clouds look different in winter, flatter, heavier, tinted with shades of pearl and blue. The wind becomes sharper, more honest. It doesn't drift. It cuts. It speaks clearly. And yet there's a kind of intimacy in winter weather, too. Fires are lit. Blankets are pulled closer. Warmth becomes a treasure, a comfort not taken for granted. But the orbit continues. Even as the days feel still, the earth is moving, always moving, and eventually the light begins to return. Just a little at first, a few more minutes of sun, a faint warmth in the afternoon. Buds begin to swell, snow begins to melt, and the air starts to carry possibility again. Spring. If summer is a song, spring is its first note, gentle, uncertain, but full of promise. Rain falls often, not always heavy, but frequent, like punctuation in the day. The ground, thirsty and patient, drinks deeply, and from that soaking, life begins again. Shoots rise, flowers unfold, the wind takes on a playful edge. The weather in spring is restless, one day warm, the next cool, one moment bright, the next gray. It mirrors the earth's own adjustment, waking up slowly, shaking off winter's long breath. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in the way your body leans into sunlight that wasn't there before. The seasons are not just shifts in temperature. They are moods of the planet, expressions of its tilt, its journey, its quiet relationship with the sun. And they don't begin on a single date. They begin in feeling, in noticing, in the subtle changes around you, the angle of light, the sound of wind through different leaves, the scent of damp soil or dry dust. And while the Coriolis effect bends the wind and pressure patterns dance across the sky, the seasons add another layer, another voice in the symphony of weather, a soft harmony that shifts everything without needing to speak. Different places on Earth experience the seasons differently. Near the equator, the tilt matters less, warmth remains. Though the rains may come and go, near the poles, the contrast is extreme, months of light followed by months of dark. But everywhere, the Earth's lean changes the light, and light, more than anything, sets the tone for what weather becomes. It stirs the oceans, it guides migration, it tells trees when to sleep and when to wake, and it tells you, in its quiet way, when to carry an umbrella, or pull on a sweater, or pause to listen to the wind. And just like weather, the seasons are never exactly the same. Each summer brings new storms. Each winter, new shapes of ice on windows. Each spring, a slightly different shade of green. And you, whether you realize it or not, shift with them. Maybe you sleep more in winter. Maybe you walk longer in summer. Maybe you feel restless in spring and reflective in fall. These aren't coincidences. They're part of the slow dialogue between you and the turning planet. A rhythm written not in clocks, but in warmth and light and time. And now, as you lie still beneath your own ceiling, somewhere the earth is continuing its quiet arc, spinning, leaning, drifting forward. The stars remain where they are, but your view of them shifts. The sun, though unchanged, appears in a different place each day, and with it, the air changes too. Perhaps outside your window, there's a breeze tonight, or maybe the air is still. Maybe the ground is dusted with frost, or still damp with spring rain. Whatever the season, it's only passing through on its way to something else, because weather is not fixed. It is a moment in the arc of movement, and seasons are its chorus, slow, patient, circling again and again, like a lullaby that always returns to its beginning. The seasons move gently, like hands on an ancient clock, but within those larger rhythms, something more intense can awaken, something sudden, swirling, powerful, storms. Not all storms are loud. Some slip in quietly, wrapped in gray, but others, they spin, they gather, they grow, and among the most mesmerizing of them all are the great spirals born over warm oceans. Cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons, different names, same force. You might imagine one now, not in chaos, but in structure, a slow churning circle of clouds, hundreds of miles wide, turning with a steady, patient rhythm. At its heart is an eye, calm, clear, almost gentle, but surrounding it, winds howl in a perfect ring, the eye wall, where the storm's energy reaches its peak. It is a paradox, peace at the center, violence at the edges, and it all begins with warmth. Over the ocean, where the water is hot and the air is moist, a small disturbance can grow. Warm air rises, carrying vapor with it, and as it lifts, that vapor condenses into clouds. Heat is released. More air rises, the pressure lowers, the spiral begins. The Earth's rotation helps guide the spin, curling the system into that familiar shape. As long as the storm remains over warm water, it can strengthen, feed, expand. Wind gathers around the center like dancers drawn toward a stage, moving faster and tighter with each step. You might expect this to be violent, but from space, the storms look like art, elegant, balanced, even beautiful. You see the symmetry, the motion. It's only on the ground that their power becomes clear. Rain pours in sheets. Wind bends trees, tears at roofs, lifts water from the sea and carries it inland. Waves rise and crash against shorelines, and all the while, the storm continues to turn, carried by the larger winds above, shifting direction, changing speed, always following the invisible paths carved by the jet stream. But what makes these spinning storms so powerful is also what makes them temporary. They depend on heat, on open ocean, on freedom to feed. Once they meet cooler waters or drift over land, they begin to weaken. The spiral unwinds, the eye fills, the storm slows, and eventually it dissolves, not instantly, but in stages, like a breath being released. And yet, its memory lingers, in puddles, in broken branches, in scattered leaves and soaked earth, in the stories told afterward of wind that howled like a train, of skies that turned strange colors, of air so loud it became silence. Still, not all storms knit oceans. Some spin over land, forming in clusters of thunderstorms that stretch across wide plains. Supercells, they're called, vast vertical engines of rising air. These can give birth to tornadoes, those fast, twisting fingers of wind that touch down for moments, minutes, sometimes longer. Tornadoes are smaller than hurricanes, but far more focused. Where a hurricane spreads its strength, a tornado concentrates it. It draws in wind from all sides, tightens the spiral, and spins faster than anything else in the atmosphere. Some are gentle, brief, barely noticed. Others carve scars into the land. But even here, In this focused fury, the rules of motion remain the same: rising air, shift in pressure, the turning of the earth. The ingredients are simple, the results are breathtaking. And then there are the storm systems that don't spin quite as visibly, but are still sculpted by motion: blizzards, nor'easters, monsoons, each with their own voice, their own rhythm, shaped by land, by sea, by season. They carry snow, or rain, or wind, or all three. Some come every year, like old songs. Others arrive unexpectedly, rewriting the pattern of a place. Yet beneath every storm, no matter its shape or size, is a kind of longing, air seeking balance, heat trying to escape, moisture rising, falling, rising again. The storm is not the enemy. It's a release, an adjustment, a system doing what it must to find equilibrium, even if it must do so loudly. There's a strange comfort in understanding this, that even the most chaotic weather is part of a system, that it follows laws, that it makes sense even when it feels wild. You may remember watching a storm roll in, the way the sky darkens, not suddenly, but slowly, a subtle deepening of color, the way the wind picks up before the rain, stirring leaves, raising goosebumps, the way the first drops fall fat and far apart, then gather into a steady rhythm, the way thunder speaks from afar, then closer, then drifts away again. Being inside during a storm, especially one that spins, is a particular kind of stillness. The world outside moves so wildly, and you are held in a bubble of quiet. You feel small, but not in a frightening way. Small like a single note in a long song. Present, aware, grounded. And as the storm passes, it leaves behind more than puddles and fallen petals. It leaves clarity. The air smells washed. The clouds break apart like pulled cotton. Light returns, soft and gold-edged, and everything, every tree, every blade of grass, every rooftop, feels like it has just woken up. Even now, somewhere on earth, a storm is forming, far out at sea, perhaps, over waters warmed by the sun, or on a plain where heat rises from dry soil. The air is already beginning to spin. The pressure is already shifting. It is quiet, still small, but it is coming to life. And you, here, in this moment, are part of that same system, breathing the same air, feeling the same pull of the planet, held gently beneath the same sky that holds storms in its hands. So rest now. The world is turning, the wind is moving, and the storms are just another way the sky remembers how to dance. And after the storms have spun and scattered, after the wind has howled and softened again, there comes a quieter kind of weather, one that doesn't rush in with noise or lightning, but tiptoes gently into the world, touching everything it meets without a sound. Snow. It doesn't fall so much as it drifts. There's a difference. Falling feels fast, inevitable, but snow takes its time. It glides, it meanders. Sometimes it floats almost sideways, carried by currents you cannot see. Other times it swirls in circles, as if unsure where to land, and when it finally settles, it does so delicately, a soft landing without hurry or weight. But snow begins far above, in the same clouds that once gave you rain. Only here, the cold is deep, the kind of cold that makes moisture pause, that turns vapor not into droplets, but into crystals, tiny, intricate sculptures that grow in midair, branching out one fragile arm at a time. Each snowflake is a record of its journey, of temperature shifts, of humidity, of every breath of air it passed through. 6 sides, always. But within that rule, infinite variation. Some are thin and spindly like lace. Others are thick, like stacked stars. No two the same, not because the universe demands uniqueness, but because the path each flake follows is unrepeatable, and all of them begin with a speck, a particle so small it's invisible, a bit of dust, perhaps, or salt, or ash. Moisture clings to it, as freezes around it, and then begins to bloom into crystal. What was once vapor becomes geometry. As snowflakes fall, they continue to grow, to shape themselves according to the air around them. The colder and drier the sky, the more complex they become. Warmer, wetter air yields simpler shapes, plates, columns, rods. Snow isn't just white fluff, it's architecture, delicate, mathematical, fleeting, and yet, despite all that detail, when snow lands, it erases. It smooths the edges of the world, blankets rooftops, rounds out branches, softens the outlines of fences, sidewalks, even sound. A snowy morning feels quieter, not just because of the absence of motion, but because snow absorbs noise. The landscape becomes a muted version of itself. Footsteps are muffled, voices carry differently. Everything feels like it's speaking through a dream. You might remember waking to snow as a child, how the light through the window seemed brighter, almost glowing. The world transformed. Ordinary things, a mailbox, a tree stump, a set of stairs, looked unfamiliar, made new by the soft white coat that covered them. And stepping outside into it, everything felt slower, even the air, even your own breath. Snowfall doesn't rush. It invites stillness. It turns a street into a quiet path, a backyard into a blank page. You notice details in snow you wouldn't otherwise. The shapes left by animals, the patterns your own boots make, the way flakes land on your sleeve and hold for just a second before vanishing. And then there's the cold itself. Not harsh, not punishing, but purposeful. Cold slows things down. Molecules move less. Reactions pause. The air becomes cleaner, drier, thinner. It stings your nose a little, sharpens your awareness. And yet, in the midst of it, your body adapts. Your skin tingles. Your breath clouds. Your heartbeat tucks in a little tighter. You pull your warmth closer. Snow and cold are partners. One doesn't exist without the other. Snow cannot fall if the air is too warm. And once it lands, it reshapes the cold around it, brightening, insulating, reflecting light back into the sky. That's why snowy nights can feel lighter than others, the ground glowing softly beneath the stars. Even in cities, where noise and light often crowd out silence, snow brings a kind of hush. Street lamps scatter their halos into flurries. The sound of cars becomes a soft crush instead of a roar. Windows glow more warmly against the cold. You feel more inside, more sheltered. There's poetry in how snow arrives. No announcements, no warnings shouted from the sky. Just a subtle shift in air, a deepening quiet, and then a single flake, followed by another and another, until suddenly the world is different. Some snow falls heavy and wet, clinging to everything. Other snow is dry, powdery, almost like dust. It blows easily, dances in gusts, spiles high and light. You can tell the kind of snow not just by how it feels, but by how it sounds, crunchy underfoot and squeaky slushy, or silent. Snow has a voice. You just have to listen closely, and sometimes snow comes not in the open, but in secret. It falls at night while you're asleep, and when you wake, the world has changed. A quiet magic written in white. Not every place knows snow. In warmer lands, it may be imagined more than seen, drawn in storybooks, watched in films, touched only once on a distant vacation. But even where it never falls, the idea of snow lingers. It speaks of winter, of cold, of stillness, of time slowed down. And even where snow is familiar, even where it falls every year without fail, it still feels special. You never quite get used to it. You never stop noticing the first flakes of the season, or the last ones, reluctant to leave in spring, because snow is temporary, beautiful, and gone. It melts, it compacts, it turns to slush, to water, to vapor, and rises again into the sky, part of the same cycle as rain and cloud and storm, just caught for a moment in a colder shape. And maybe now, as you rest beneath your blanket, you imagine a snow-covered field, silent, untouched, a single tree standing in the distance, the flakes still falling, the air holding its breath, nothing rushed, nothing loud, just the slow, geometric drift of frozen air becoming something you can see and touch and remember outside your window. The night might be cold or not, but somewhere it is snowing, somewhere. The sky is sending down its softest language, and the world is posing to listen. Let it fall, let it land, let it cover what it will, gently. As snow melts and the landscape softens again, the air begins to hold more warmth, more light. The cold loosens its grip, and something curious begins to happen, not always noticeably, not loudly, but in the heat of day, when the sun leans in just right and the ground breathes upward, the world begins to shimmer. At first, you think your eyes are playing tricks on you, that the road ahead is wet, glistening, puddled, though there was no rain, or that a distant shape is floating, detached from the earth, a tree that hovers, a horizon that bends. But what you're seeing is real, and it has a name, a mirage. It's not an illusion in the way a magician might pull a rabbit from a hat. It's physics. It's light, bending through layers of air, each with a slightly different temperature. The ground warms under the sun. The air just above it becomes hotter than the air above that. And so, light traveling through those layers curves, subtly, quietly, as it moves toward your eyes. You don't notice the curve, but your brain does. It assumes the light came straight, as it usually does, and places the image where it would have been if the world were cooler, calmer, simpler. And so the road appears wet when it's dry. The sky seems to lie on the ground. A faraway object looks split or doubled, all because light, that straight traveler, has decided to dance. It's called refraction, the bending of light as it moves through different mediums. It happens with water, too. Think of a straw in a glass. It looks broken, offset, like two pieces misaligned, but it's not. It's just that light has changed direction as it entered the water. Air does this too, though its layers are invisible. Mirages are most common in deserts, on long highways, in places where heat pools just above the surface, but they aren't exclusive to the dry and arid. On cold days, over ice or snow, an opposite version can appear, a superior mirage, where distant ships seem to float above the sea, or islands stretch upward like towers. In polar regions, these illusions become something even more poetic, Fata Morgana, named after the sorceress Morgan Le Fay. These mirages are layered, stacked, distorted. Mountains rise where there are none. Cities hover above the horizon. The world becomes taller, thinner, rearranged. But the truth is, the world hasn't changed. Only the path of the light has. And yet, doesn't that feel magical in its own quiet way? That just by shifting temperature, by placing warm next to cool, the air itself can create images, mimic water, trick the eye into seeing beyond what's there. Mirages are a reminder that perception is not always truth, that even the clearest day can carry secrets, that what you see is shaped not just by what exists, but by how light has traveled to meet your gaze. They're not always grand. Often, they're subtle, a shimmer on the road, a wavering fence line, the faint doubling of a tree in the heat. But if you pause and look, really look, you'll notice them, those gentle echoes of what isn't there. And sometimes, that shimmer isn't a mirage at all, but simply the way heat moves. On warm days, you see it rising from rooftops, from asphalt, from the hood of a car, wavy lines, transparent but active, like the air is sighing upward. This is called heat haze, or heat shimmer. It happens because warm air is less dense than cooler air, and as it rises, it distorts the light passing through it. There's no deception here, just movement, just energy made visible. You're not seeing something that isn't there. You're seeing how very alive the air is, even over water. You'll find a distortion. Ever looked across a lake on a hot day and noticed the trees on the other side seem to ripple, as if the surface is gently vibrating? That's the air again, playing with light, softening the edges of the world. In these moments, it's easy to believe that the air is more than just molecules, that it has intention, that it wants you to notice the in-between, the nearly there, that it enjoys a bit of mystery, and perhaps it does, because weather isn't always grand or loud. Sometimes it's a whisper at the edge of sight, a curve where there should be a line, a duplicate where there should be one. These are the quietest of phenomena, the ones that ask not to be chased, but noticed gently without expectation. It's strange how something so rooted in physics can feel like a dream. But isn't that the nature of light? To move straight until something nudges it gently, to shift its path without resistance, curving like a dancer mid-step? And isn't that the nature of weather too? To be shaped not by just one thing, but by many. Heat and cold, movement and stillness, sky and soil, sun and shadow. Mirages remind you that the world is layered, that the sky you see is not the only one, that sometimes in the radiant light, the air opens up just enough to show you a version of the world that's slightly off kilter, not false, just bent, and maybe tonight, as you lie still with your eyes closed, you picture that shimmer, the wavering horizon, the rising haze, the way light dances on a hot road. You imagine a distant mountain that appears taller than it is, or a sailboat suspended in the air, floating quietly just above the sea. You know it isn't real, but for a moment it is, and perhaps in dreams. The air bends too, and the stories we tell ourselves shimmer slightly, reshaped by warmth, softened by sleep. The world does not always speak in facts. Sometimes it speaks in light, and just as light can bend, shimmer, and trick the eye into seeing what isn't quite there, it can also paint, not with brushes, but with waves, not on canvas, but across the endless dome of sky, because as the sun moves through its arc each day, the air becomes more than a window. It becomes a palette, and the sky begins to change its color. Blue is where it begins, the daytime sky, familiar and constant, draped overhead like the world's softest ceiling. But it isn't actually the color of space, or even of the atmosphere. It's the product of sunlight meeting air, a quiet scattering of rays. Sunlight, as you may already know, is made up of many colors, though it seems white to the naked eye. Each color travels in a wave, some long, some short. The blue waves are shorter, they scatter more easily when they encounter air molecules. And so, as sunlight passes through the atmosphere, the blue light bounces in every direction. It's scattered across the entire sky, gently, evenly, until blue becomes what you see everywhere. It's not painted there. It's revealed, a color emerging from motion. But that blue is not constant. It deepens when the air is dry. It fades when the sun climbs higher. And then slowly, it changes. As the sun begins to lower, the light takes a longer path through the atmosphere. More of the blue light is scattered away before it reaches your eyes. What's left? The longer waves, reds, oranges, golds. This is when the sky begins to warm. You know these moments. The late afternoon glow that softens every surface. The way shadows stretch. The way everything, buildings, trees, skin looks richer, deeper, touched by something kind. It's not just the absence of harshness. It's the presence of color that's been waiting all day for its turn to speak. And then, the sunset. It arrives not in a single moment, but as a procession. First, the golds, strong, familiar, generous. Then the orange, glowing at the horizon, dipping into reds that pulse and flicker like the embers of a thought. Sometimes the whole sky joins in, pinks brushing against purples, streaks of crimson slicing through clouds. Other times, it's more subdued, a quiet fade into gray. But always, there is a transition, a crossing over, a final breath of light before the world turns dim. The sun doesn't fall, of course. The earth turns, but from where you lie, it feels like a curtain being drawn, a performance ending, and in the afterglow, there's often a hush, a pause in the air, a stillness as if even the atmosphere is watching the last colors dissolve. After sunset, the sky doesn't go dark immediately. There's twilight, that brief, beautiful space between day and night. During this time, sunlight still lingers far above, bouncing down softly, bending through the atmosphere at strange angles. The colors become more subtle now, dustier, more personal. It's a time for quiet thoughts, for long shadows, for the first stars to peek through, and then slowly, the sky becomes something else entirely, night. But the colors don't vanish. They just change forms. The deep navy of a cloudless night, the soft gray of moonlight on clouds, the sharp silver white of a star overhead. Even black is a color here, not empty, but full of space, of distance, of possibility. And sometimes, if the conditions are just right, the night sky offers one more surprise. The aurora, far near the poles, where charged particles from the sun meet Earth's magnetic field, the sky can come alive with motion and light. Greens ripple like curtains, pinks, purples, and blues flicker and fade. It's not just beautiful, it's alive, a direct conversation between the earth and the sun, written in ribbons of color across the sky. This, too, is weather, not the kind that touches your skin, but the kind that speaks to your eyes. Even clouds can become part of the palette. During golden hour, they catch the sun's last light and hold it, glowing from within. Some are lit from below, blazing red or gold. Others become silhouettes, dark shapes against a fire-colored sky. You've seen them, and maybe, without meaning to, you've paused, just to look, just to feel it, because color has a way of reaching something deeper. It's not only about vision, it's about emotion. The cool blue of morning can feel fresh, hopeful. The white blue of a noonday sky can feel clean, alert. The orange of sunset, nostalgic. So the purples of twilight, introspective. The dark of night, comforting in its finality. And all of it comes from light, from waves of energy bouncing through the air, from particles scattered, absorbed, bent, revealed, from sun to sky, to eye to heart. Perhaps now, as you lie in the quiet dark, you think back to a particular sunset, one that stayed with you. Maybe it was over the ocean or across rooftops. Maybe it came after a long day or just before something new. You remember the way the light felt, not just how it looked, but how it made you feel, as if, just for a moment, the world had slowed to let you see it more clearly. The sky holds more than weather. It holds memory, and the colors, ever shifting, never still, are part of that. They're not separate from the wind, or the rain, or the temperature. They're part of the same language, another way the sky speaks, not in thunder, not in storm, but in hue. So close your eyes, if they're not already closed. Picture the soft gradient of dusk, gold to rose to indigo. Let it fade gently into deep blue, then black. Let the last colors rest behind your lids, like whispers from a sun that has simply turned away for a while. The sky will color again tomorrow, but for now, it sleeps too. Even after the colors fade and the sky sinks into night, the air itself remains, holding you in its invisible arms. You breathe it in the way you always do, without thinking, but sometimes, on certain days, the air doesn't just surround you, it clings. That's humidity. It's not loud, not sudden, not even always visible, but you feel it. Not in your eyes or ears, but in your skin, in the way your clothes seem to stick, in the way the air presses softly against your body like a blanket warmed a little too long. It's not always uncomfortable. Sometimes it soothes, like a warm bath. Other times, it weighs you down. Humidity is moisture in the air, water vapor, invisible but everywhere, woven into every breath, every breeze, every gust of wind. On dry days, you don't notice it much. The air moves cleanly, clearly, but when humidity rises, the difference is unmistakable. The air feels fuller, heavier, slower, like it's carrying something extra with it. That something is water, not droplets, Not rain, not mist, but vapor, moisture that's still in its lightest form, suspended in air so thin you can't see it. And yet, it affects everything. Your skin, for instance, cools itself by releasing sweat. The moisture on your skin evaporates, taking heat with it. But when the air is already filled with water vapor, it doesn't want to take more. So the sweat stays, the cooling slows, and your body feels just a little warmer than before, a little more trapped inside itself. On a hot, humid day, even standing still feels like effort. You move more slowly, breathe more deeply, search for shade that doesn't just block the sun, but lets you breathe again. It's a different kind of heat, not sharp, but soft, almost sticky. It wraps around you. It makes you aware of your skin in ways dry air never does. And it's not just you. Plants feel it too. Animals, wood, paint, books. All things absorb and release moisture, and when the air is thick with it, everything adjusts. Leaves may look more vibrant, but they also droop, paper curls, windows fog, hair frizzes. The world becomes more pliable, more tender to touch. But humidity isn't just something that happens to you, it's something the world creates, piece by piece. Warm air holds more moisture than cold air. So as the sun heats the ground, lakes and rivers and trees and oceans all release tiny amounts of vapor. The air drinks it in, and soon that invisible tide begins to rise. Sometimes you feel it gathering, not in the rain, but before it. The air becomes still, full, quiet. Cicadas buzz louder. Birds stop flitting and settle into trees. Oh, even the sky seems to wait. You may not see a cloud yet, but you know something's coming. It's as if the air is whispering, I am full. And sometimes it is so full that it must let go. That's when condensation begins. Tiny droplets form on cooler surfaces. Glass, leaves, skin. Dew is born not from wetness falling from above, but from water leaving the air to find a resting place. It's humidity becoming visible. On humid mornings, grass sparkles with this soft exhale. Spiderwebs turn silver, petals gleam. The world seems newly made, not because of rain, but because the air decided to lay down its burden for just a moment. And in the evenings, when the sun sets and the temperature dips, the process can happen again. A slow, quiet release. You feel it in the way the air changes, is still moist, but more forgiving, like it's breathing with you again. Humidity doesn't always come alone. It pairs with heat in the summer, with fog in the valleys, with thunderstorms when the pressure finally shifts. It builds and waits and builds again. It's part of every weather story, even when it's never named. And yet, despite its power, humidity remains invisible. Unlike snow or rain or lightning, you can't point to it. You can only feel it, or sometimes hear it, in the distant sound of a fan, in the slow hum of an air conditioner, in the sigh of someone stepping out of the sun. It's not often spoken of with affection, but maybe that's only because it's misunderstood. Humidity is not trying to smother you. It's trying to balance. The air wants to hold just the right amount of moisture, not too much, not too little, just enough to keep the world soft, just enough to make the sky ready to rain, or to clear, or to hold the warmth a little longer into the night. And you, yes, even now, are part of that balance. You breathe out water vapor with every exhale. You give some of your warmth to the air and take some of its dampness in return. You are not separate from the atmosphere. You are inside it, always. So when you feel that heaviness on your skin, that warm press of air against your cheek, remember, this is the air being generous. It is full. It is offering. It is alive. And perhaps, lying here, wrapped in your own kind of warmth, you feel that same stillness, the softness of night air that has held the day's heat and hasn't yet let it go. You feel the slight weight in the room, not heavy, just present, and in that weight a kind of comfort, because moisture, after all, is life. It clings to what it loves, it lingers, it waits, and when the time is right, it becomes something else. A cloud, a drop, a breeze, a sigh, as the moisture lingers, clinging softly to leaves, windows, and skin. There are moments when it gathers close, not in the sky, not in some faraway drift of cloud, but here, right where you stand, low to the ground, gentle, intimate. You look out the window or step outside, and the world has gone hushed, blurred at the edges, folded into itself. Fog. It moves without movement, appearing more than arriving. It doesn't rush in like rain or swirl like wind. It simply exists, as if the air itself has grown visible, a veil draped across the landscape, softening light, a muting sound, turning every street and tree and lamppost into a quiet dream of itself. Fog is, in truth, just a cloud that's come close, not hovering far above, but resting on the earth, like all clouds. It forms when warm, moist air cools enough for the vapor within it to condense into droplets. But instead of floating high in the atmosphere, it condenses where you live and breathe, in valleys, along hillsides, above lakes, across open fields. And unlike rain or thunder, fog doesn't announce itself. It's already there when you wake. It waits, silently, like a dream that never quite ended. You open the door, and the world is different. Familiar shapes are altered. The tree across the street is still a tree, but it's quieter now, more contemplative. Its lines softened, its presence ghostly. Walking through fog feels different from walking through anything else. The air is not just around you, it's part of your sight. Each step feels private, even sacred, as if the world has pulled in close and left only a small circle of clarity just for you. Distance loses its meaning. The far away no longer exists. There is only here, only now. And in that closeness, something else emerges, a stillness that feels alive. Even sound behaves differently in fog. It becomes dampened, subdued. A passing car doesn't growl, it murmurs. Footsteps seem hesitant, unsure. Voices carry just a few feet before dissolving. It's as though fog has thickened the very air, wrapping each sound in a soft cocoon. Light, too, takes on a different personality. Street lamps glow in halos. Headlights scatter into beams, not sharp, but diffused, like watercolor spreading across a wet canvas. Morning sun filters through fog, not in rays, but in sheets of gold and gray. It's not brightness you feel, but illumination, subtle, slow, like a memory returning. And in that memory, perhaps, you recall other fogs, mornings spent sipping warm drinks, watching the garden disappear and reappear with each passing breath. Drives through winding roads where only the curve ahead is visible. The comfort of being held in a world that isn't in a hurry to show you everything at once. Because that's what fog does. It slows the world down. It asks you to move carefully, to listen more, to accept that you don't need to see the whole path, just the next few steps, and that can be a kind of gift. Fog often forms in the quiet hours, at dawn when the air cools after a humid night, or at dusk as warmth slips from the land, in valleys where cooler air pools, near water where moisture lingers. It's born from calmness, from stability. No strong winds to tear it apart, no heat to evaporate it, just the right mix of still air and soft moisture. And when the sun finally rises fully, fog begins to retreat. It doesn't vanish suddenly. It thins, pulls back, lifts from the ground like a curtain slowly rising. Trees regain their sharpness, roads stretch farther, colors grow brighter, and the world, once blurred, comes back into focus. But something remains, a kind of reverence. The fog leaves behind a trace of its silence. Even after it's gone, you move a little more gently, speak a little more softly. You carry that stillness with you. In stories and poems, fog is often described as mysterious, eerie, even haunting. And yes, it can feel that way. It hides things. It changes the shape of the world. But it can also be comforting, protective, like the sky has come down to cover you, to wrap the earth in its arms and let it rest a while. It has no hard edges, no thunder, no flash, only presence, only softness. You can't hold fog. Try to grasp it, and it slips through your fingers. You breathe it in without effort, and just like dreams, it leaves no mark, no sound, only the feeling that something beautiful passed nearby. There are places in the world where fog is a regular guest, coastal towns where sea air cools quickly at night, or highlands where clouds tumble down into valleys. In these places, people learn to live with mist. They drive with care, they light lanterns, they wait, and sometimes they welcome it. Because fog gives the mind a moment of quiet. It turns sharpness into softness. It invites contemplation. In a world that often rushes, fog is a slow breath, a reason to pause. So now, lying here in your own hush, imagine a field just before sunrise. The grass is damp. The trees are hushed silhouettes. A faint glow begins to stretch across the edge of the sky, but everything beneath it is still veiled. You take a step, and the air greets you, not cold, not warm, just close. You don't need to know what lies beyond. You are here, and the fog is with you. Even when the fog lifts and clarity returns, the sky does not fall silent. It continues to speak, though not in words. Its voice is rhythm, movement, repetition. Beneath the daily fluctuations of sun and rain, behind the immediate sensations of breeze or thunder, there's a larger pulse, weather patterns that stretch not across moments, but across months, even years. These are the deeper breaths of the atmosphere, not gusts, but currents, not whispers, but stories told over time. One of those stories begins far away in the vast Pacific Ocean, where warm water gathers near the equator and starts to shift eastward. This slow rearranging of heat and wind and moisture is called El Niño, a pattern so soft in motion you might miss it entirely, but so powerful that it changes weather around the world. During an El Niño year, that warm water, pooled along South America's coast, sends waves of change through the atmosphere. Jet streams shift, storm paths realign. Rain falls where it normally doesn't. Drought takes hold where it usually rains. It's like a ripple in a pond, except the pond is the planet, and the ripple touches nearly everything. And then, like a counterpoint in a long, drifting melody, comes La Niñas. The waters cool, winds strengthen, and the ripple moves in the opposite direction, or rain returns to one place, disappears from another. Hurricanes grow stronger, winters become sharper. These are not rules, but tendencies, weather nudged into new shapes by the push and pull of invisible oceans. You can't see El Nino from your porch. You won't hear La Nina in a single thunderclap, but their fingerprints are everywhere, on the way seasons behave, on the length of a dry spell, on the odd warmth of a winter afternoon, or the sudden soaking of a summer morning. They are part of what scientists call teleconnections, distant forces connected by shared air, by shared heat, by a global system where nothing is entirely separate. The Arctic has its own rhythms, too. The Arctic Oscillation, which shifts between patterns that either hold cold air locked around the pole or allow it to spill southward, brushing places with snow that rarely see it. In these years, cold snaps may arrive like surprises, uninvited guests that drift far from their usual homes, guided by invisible doors in the atmosphere swinging open or closed. The Indian Ocean whispers its own messages. The Atlantic, too. Each part of the earth has a pattern, a cycle, some short, some long, some still being understood. The planet is full of these quiet dances, of water and air, of heat and motion. Some return every year, others stretch across decades. All leave traces. You might wonder why they matter to you, why distant oceans should shape the rain in your backyard or the frost on your windshield. But the atmosphere has no borders, no fences, it flows. A dust storm in the Sahara can send particles all the way to the Amazon. Smoke from distant fires can tint a sunset thousands of miles away. A typhoon in the Pacific can influence the position of the jet stream above your country, weeks later, subtly bending the path of a future storm. Weather is local, climate is global, and patterns live in between, connecting the two, weaving small events into larger shapes. Farmers watch these patterns, pilots study them, meteorologists trace their signals in satellite images and sea temperatures. But you feel them too, in the way a season lingers longer than usual or ends too soon, in the rhythm of wet and dry, in the mood of the sky. Even animals respond. Birds alter their migration, whales change their feeding paths, insects appear early or late, trees bloom before the last frost has left. The world listens and adjusts, and still, the patterns are not commands. They are possibilities, tendencies. They tilt the scale, but they don't fix the outcome. Like wind guiding a leaf's fall, but never dictating its landing. Some years, the patterns blend into the background, barely felt. Other years, they shape everything, planting schedules, river levels, electricity use, even the color of the leaves in autumn. And among these longer rhythms, there are smaller ones too, sea breezes that rise and fall with the tide, mountain winds that shift from day to night, land and sea playing their own quiet games, sending air back and forth, balancing temperatures with a kind of atmospheric handshake. Urban heat islands, places where concrete holds warmth, create mini climates of their own, influencing where rain falls, how fog forms, how wind flows, even cities breathe, adding their own signatures to the sky's language. And through it all, the earth keeps turning, the oceans keep pulsing, the air keeps moving. The language of weather patterns continues, not in sentences, but in swirls, not in words, but in waves. It's a slow conversation, one you can only hear if you listen over time. And maybe as you lie there now, with your body still and your breath even, you begin to feel it, not as noise, but as rhythm. The way your days have their own patterns, the way moods rise and fall, the way you carry the memory of seasons even when they've passed. You too are part of a cycle of warmth and rest, of energy and quiet, and the weather, in all its shifting voices, is part of you. So let the larger patterns swirl around you now. Oceans you'll never touch, clouds you'll never see, winds that began their journey weeks ago and have only just arrived. They move with meaning, even when we don't understand it all. They move with care, even when they bring change, and they move with beauty, even when they pass in silence. Patterns drift through the air, quietly shaping the sky. Some pass like ripples, others settle in deeper, leaving traces not only in the landscape, but in you. Because weather doesn't just happen around you, it lives in your memories. It ties itself to moments, to feelings, to people, and long after the rain has dried or the snow has melted, something remains. You remember the smell of a sidewalk just after a summer storm, the sharp scent of wet pavement and warm air colliding. You remember the sudden gust of wind that lifted your scarf as you stood on a quiet street corner. You remember the first time you saw snow fall through a street lamp, not loudly, but with that slow, magical hush that only happens when the world forgets to speak. These moments aren't about temperature or forecasts or measurements. They're about presence, about how the sky felt, how it touched your skin, how it shaped the light and the silence. Weather's more than a backdrop. It's part of the scene. A thunderstorm might remind you of a childhood evening, the way you curled beneath blankets while thunder rolled through the hills like distant drums. A warm breeze on a spring afternoon might bring back the feel of a hand in yours, or the scent of lilacs from a garden long gone. Fog might carry you back to early mornings, when everything was still possible and the world looked like a dream waiting to be walked through. Even the harsh weather, the storms, the chill, the long gray days becomes part of your story. The power outage when candles flickered in every room, the snow day that closed everything and made the whole city quiet, the oppressive heat that made you slow down, rest, sit beside a fan and just exist. Weather carries emotion. It enhances. It echoes. You don't just live through it. You feel with it. The grayness of a rainy day doesn't just dampen the ground. It softens the mind, invites a quieter kind of thinking. A bright, windy morning stirs something else entirely, a kind of alertness, of movement. The sky gives you more than conditions. It gives you mood. And just like a familiar melody, certain kinds of weather can bring memories rushing back. A sudden chill in the air might remind you of a coat you haven't worn in years. The scent of pine in the cold might carry with it a whole season. Holidays, laughter, the soft clink of mugs being set on a wooden table. Sometimes the connection is subtle. You may not even realize why a particular cloud formation makes your chest ache a little, or why a golden shaft of light through the trees feels so comforting. But somewhere in your body, in the quiet corners of your memory, weather has written itself in. It's why we talk about it so much, not just because it's common, but because it's shared. When you mention the storm last night, you're not just reporting facts, you're reaching out. You're saying, I felt this. Did you feel it too? And when you hear the sound of rain on a roof, or see the way snow gathers on a branch, or watch clouds stretch themselves thin across an afternoon sky, you know, even if you can't say how, that someone, somewhere, is seeing the same thing, feeling the same atmosphere. Weather binds us. It connects generations. The stories your grandparents told of winters long ago, of summers without air conditioning, of the day a tornado passed near the farm. These are not just tales, they're meteorological heirlooms, each one shaped by a sky they once stood beneath. You may carry similar stories of waiting in a school hallway during a storm warning, of running outside when the first flurries began to fall, of sitting at a window during a heavy rain, thinking of nothing, or perhaps thinking of everything. And then there are the quiet moments you didn't know you'd remember. The early morning mist that curled around the trees as you drove to a place you'd never been before. The gentle patter of raindrops on a metal roof as you drifted to sleep in an unfamiliar bed. The warm wind that rustled the pages of your book, held open on your lap as you sat alone but not lonely. These moments lodge themselves in you, small, gentle weather memories that resurface unexpectedly, not as sharp scenes, but as textures, as moods, a sense of, I felt this before, even when you haven't. Perhaps, without knowing it, you've mapped your life in weather. That summer was blistering, and everything felt endless. That spring was rainy, and you learned how to wait. That fall, the winds were fierce, and everything seemed to change at once. The weather didn't cause these things, but it marked them. It gave them weight, presence, atmosphere, and in return, you gave it attention, noticed it, felt it, let it in. Tonight, as you lie here, another weather memory might be forming. You may not realize it yet, but something about this air, this quiet, this moment, it may come back to you years from now. You may remember how the room felt, how the light moved on the ceiling, how your breath softened as the story went on, and outside, somewhere, the weather continues. It may be calm, it may be moving, it may be preparing its next chapter, but whatever it brings, it will find its place in your mind, not just as data, but as feeling. Because weather isn't just something you live through, it's something you carry. And so you drift, still and quiet, held by the soft weight of memory, the trace of weather wrapped gently around your breath. The sky is no longer just above you. It has become part of you, not distant, not unreachable, but near, present. You wear its moods like a second skin. Outside, the air moves in silence. Perhaps a breeze shifts through the branches, lifting a single leaf and letting it fall again. Perhaps there is no wind at all, only the stillness that comes after everything has been said, after the clouds have passed, after the storms have spun and the sun has painted the last colors of day. Now the sky sings something slower, a lullaby, not in melody, but in rhythm, in softness, in the rise and fall of breath, in the hush of the night, in the way the world quiets itself for rest. It's not just a pause, it's a return, a drawing in, a reminder that the weather, like you, needs stillness too. Think of the sea after a storm, how the waves smooth themselves out. Think of the sky after rain, how the light returns without apology. Think of the wind after it's carried its stories across the land, how it settles down among the grasses and sleeps. There is something sacred in this closing movement, a kind of peace that only comes when everything has passed through. The heat, the moisture, the shimmer, the snow, and the sky is once again bare, not empty, just calm. Sometimes this quiet comes after a long day. Sometimes it arrives without warning, like a cool hand on a warm forehead. It's the moment you realize the house is finally still, or that your thoughts have stopped circling and are beginning to drift. The atmosphere breathes with you. You exhale, it exhales. You release tension, so does the air. It's not a metaphor, it's a pattern, a shared rhythm between body and world. Above you now, the stars may be hidden by clouds, or they may be shining in full. It doesn't matter. The sky remains, even unseen. It holds its form. It continues its cycles, its turning, its slow unfolding of temperature and pressure and light. And as the world turns beneath it, you turn too, toward rest, toward slowness. You're not separate from these rhythms. You are part of the same system. Just as a single drop becomes part of a cloud, just as a breeze joins the wind, just as heat rises from your skin and becomes part of the night air. You are not just watching the weather, you are participating in it. Your breath is part of the cycle. Your warmth joins the atmosphere. Your stillness influences the space around you, just as surely as pressure shapes wind and sunlight stirs the sky. Perhaps, if you listen closely, you can hear the last sounds of the day settling into silence, the distant echo of tires on wet pavement, the creak of branches, the final sigh of a house at rest. And beyond those small sounds, farther, higher, there is the quiet hum of the world in balance. The wind no longer pushes. The clouds no longer race. The sun has folded its light and gone to rest behind the curve of the earth. The air has softened. The sky has dimmed. And you, too, are dimming, not in brightness, but in motion. Your muscles loosen. Your thoughts grow slower, less pointed. You float a little now, gently, not quite here or there. You are becoming part of the hush, part of the night, part of the atmosphere's pause. You've traveled far this evening, through rising air and falling rain, through pressure and spin and shimmer and stillness, through science and softness, through the beautiful machinery that keeps the sky alive, and all of it was part of the same breath, of the same endless, changing, wondrous exhale of the earth. There is so much more, storms not yet formed, winds not yet named, patterns still unfolding, but they can wait. The weather, too, takes its time. So now, feel the bed beneath you, feel your chest rise and fall. Feel the quiet press of air around your arms, your legs, your eyelids. You are safe here, not just in your home, but in the world itself. The sky is no longer asking anything of you. It's singing you to sleep, not with words, not with sound, but with the hush of fog, the hush of snowfall, the hush of a warm breeze moving through tall grass, a lullaby written in air. So let go now. There is nothing more to chase, nothing more to understand tonight. The atmosphere has brought you this far, and it will carry you the rest of the way. Let the clouds drift, let the rain rest, let the sky turn gently overhead. Let yourself become as soft as mist, as quiet as dew, and sleep, dear listener, as the weather does, peacefully, cyclically, wrapped in the rhythms of something larger, older, and endlessly kind. Sweet dreams.